Hey, this is Jen, and the following video will take us through a corrective exercise strategy for a shoulder complex injury. More specifically, it's going to be for the condition of a rotator cuff strain of the lateral rotators. After participating in a warm-up where the client can increase the blood flow and prepare the body for the workload, what we're going to start with is a corrective exercise portion of self-myofascial release, which is basically inhibiting the muscles. We're finding those points of tension, and we're holding on those points of tension, and as a result, we're hoping that they'll release. To start, we're going to begin by foam rolling the upper trapezius, and for this, they could use a foam roller if they wanted to, but it's more effective to use a small object such as a ball. So for my video, I've used a golf ball and also a bouncy ball, just things that I had at home, and this worked really well, penetrating those areas of tension. So she's going to tilt her head just normally, just to the side as I do this. Secondly, for our corrective exercise strategy, based on inhibiting, we're going to work on the levator scapula and the thoracic spine. We're going to begin by using that ball, and it's going to be similar to the upper trapezius. However, we're going to get the client to tilt their chin towards their armpit, and this just changes the angle in the head, which is going to target that levator scapula a little bit more. Secondly, for the thoracic spine, we're going to have that client lay on the mid-upper portion of their back. One thing to note is this one they might not be able to maintain for that long because their neck will get sore from having to hold it up like that. Moving on to the last SMR technique, this is for the latissimus dorsi. So we're going to look for that portion of tension just underneath the armpit. One thing to note is you want to have that body in a stacked, nice neutral position, as well as you want to have that thumb facing upward to target that lat just a little bit more. We then move on to the static stretching portion, which is going to lengthen those muscles. So again, we're going to start with that upper trapezius. She's just going to bend her head slightly and pull for a little bit of tension with her hand. Things to note that we can look for is that they're maintaining a neutral spine, so they have their core engaged and they have their glutes engaged, and they're just pulling slightly on that head position. They don't really need to yank. We then move on to the levator scapula, which again is going to be very similar. However, she's going to think about bringing that chin towards the opposite armpit. And lastly, instead of lengthening the latissimus dorsi, we're actually going to lengthen that pectorals, which can often become tight as a result of having some sort of shoulder injury. So she's going to come against the wall, and she's going to be 90 degrees at the elbow in a straight line within the upper arm. And this one, she's just going to pull till she feels that point of tension. They can either lunge and then push forward, or they can move their body slightly away. Either way, we just want to look for the best way that they're going to feel that pull along the pectorals. After inhibiting and lengthening, we then move on to a portion of active isolated strengthening. And what this is doing is it's actually awakening those muscles that have been weak for so long and resulted in those muscle compensations. We can also use positional isometrics, which we'll see in the next exercise. So for the first exercise, this is going to be positional isometrics, so I would have to help her with this, and this will be for the middle and lower trapezius. Main thing we want to do is they're going to lay on a nice flat surface. They're going to lift their palm upward towards the ceiling, and they're going to push against your hand as you go. You want to think about going for 25%, 50%, 75%, and 100%. We then move on to strengthening the rotators for external rotation, which in specificity would be the infraspinatus and the teres minor. So what she's going to do is she's going to lay on that ball, be in as neutral position as possible, holding herself via her legs, and having that nice upright position. She's going to start by bringing up those elbows to a nice flat plane with that of her shoulders and the arms directly underneath. She's then going to elevate those arms or those wrists so that it almost looks like it's in a shoulder press position. And she's just going to move between the two areas, as you can see. finally, we are working that core, and more importantly, the intrinsic core. So the internal core, the stabilizer cores, the things that are going to help with low back pain, anything. Really, this is, in any corrective exercise strategy, core stabilizers is probably going to be something that is essential. So we're going to have her go in that nice quadruped position. She's going to think about engaging that core, and she's going to do an opposite arm, opposite leg raise. Finally, once we've completed all of the above, so whether it's inhibiting, lengthening, or active isolated strengthening, we're working in integrated dynamic movement. So this takes everything that we've worked on and puts together so that it can familiarize itself with each other. So the first thing that we're going to do is going to be a single leg Romanian deadlift with a PNF pattern. This is hard for people who have balance issues, and for her, she wanted to keep bending that knee rather than keeping it straight or allowing it to wander behind her. So you want to watch for that as a trainer. And then she's going to bring up her arm into a position which is just going to engage those rotator cuff muscles again. This integrated dynamic movement that we're going to do is with our lunge with an overhead press. So what she's going to do is she's going to do a basic lunge. She's going to start with those dumbbells facing her, so palms inward, and as she stands up from her lunge, she's going to press upward, so we're at the end that those palms actually face outward. And this is going to incorporate all the portions of the rotator cuff, and this will be great for stabilizing and encouraging that movement with proper movement mechanics. For cool down, I would then begin the self-myofascial release. 3 or 4 exercises that we had, and this would just again encourage that inhibiting of those tension areas, as well as it's just a good way for her to cool down and work on some of those compensations once again.